Sheryl Connelly, former manager of global consumer trends and futuring for Ford Motor Company. Thanks so much for joining me. It's great to see you.
Thanks. It's nice to be seen, John.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to chat ahead of DistribuTech 2025 in Dallas. And you will be delivering keynote remarks on March 25th in the afternoon on the vision to adapt. So, hoping that this conversation can be a nice foundational layer for our audience to get to know you if they don't know of you previously, and maybe even tease a little bit about what you might be talking about at DistribuTech. But would love to start first with your background and journey and what exactly futuring is when you were at Ford. That's a new one for me. I've seen futurist and I've seen some other wordplay, but I like that one. How about your path, Cheryl?
Oh, it's a long and unlikely path. It's funny. When I tell people I'm a futurist, I always get a quizzical look. When I'm done explaining it, then their brows furrow even more, and they go, "Well, how do you get that job?" So I'll spend a few minutes talking about that. I had no idea the job existed. It wasn't like when I was a little girl, I said someday I hope to grow up
I'm
and
going to be a
be a
futurist.
futurist. What I really wanted to be was an artist, but I chickened out and studied finance instead. And I came of age during a time where the economy was really soft, so I did what every self-respecting unemployed college student did, and I went to law school, and I thought that would make me more marketable, and alas, it did not. I got my MBA at the same time, and while that does sound like very ambitious, it really was just a matter of like, what can I do to make myself more marketable? And while I did practice law, I like to say just long enough to know I'd made a big mistake. I ended up working for Ford Motor Company, and I thought I would go in through maybe the Office of General Counsel, Treasury, or Finance, because I thought even tax compliance, I thought that was the intersection of all those degrees. But instead, I got recruited through marketing, sales, and service, and I found myself wholesaling cars to dealers, which was really unlikely because I am not your traditional car person. But after having done that for a good amount of time, I had an unexpected career change. Quite candidly, my father passed away unexpectedly, and right after my second daughter was born, and I needed a place to lick my wounds, and try to grieve this unexpected loss. And so I joined this team I'd never heard of, and it was called the Trends and Futuring team. And I look back at it now as like this divine intervention, like the day I won the lottery. I had no idea the function existed, and I loved it. Up until then, I felt like a square peg in a round hole at Ford because I didn't love cars and I wasn't sure about my journey. And then suddenly, this role I learned over time started to take all these like disparate pieces of my past and bring them together in a way I wouldn't have anticipated. So the finance taught me the business fundamentals. The MBA taught me how to apply the principles, but the law degree taught me how to do the research and the reasoning. But even the sales job that I'd had taught me how to be persuasive. And so when you want to talk to somebody about something as abstract about the future, like you get pretty good at reading your audience. Are they buying what I'm selling? And if they're not buying, then I have to kind of redirect and find a new way in. And that turned out to be really powerful because my audiences within Ford really varied. Like they ran the gamut of the enterprise. So I could be talking to designers one day and engineers the next, and their approach to problem solving is fundamentally different. And so I found that very, very helpful. But the truth of the matter is, as a futurist, it's really just about checking the strategy, helping to test the organization's strategy. And that's what I did.
Yeah, and at risk of being corny and punny, the art experience is pretty critical to the futurist role too, because you are painting that picture of like, where are we going? You can't just say like, this is going to pop. Trust me. You really you're crafting a vision and you're laying that out for leadership to help them make decisions and capitalize on opportunities and all these different things. So that is really interesting. And we've dubbed your keynote address at DTECH as the vision to adapt. I think you've done quite a bit of adapting over the course of your life. But aside from the personal adaptation that you've been through, how do you think about that organizationally and the advice you gave leadership at Ford of navigating changing landscapes and approaching uncertainty and change management, all these big things? How should our audiences be thinking about adaptation? Because that's very cross-functional from industry to industry, I would think.
It is, and it's not easy. Like, so I would say to you and your audience, like, if you struggle to adapt, to pivot, to change course, you're not alone. And the thing, one of my favorite sayings about strategy, and I don't know who said it, but it always resonates with me. The status quo exists because it works for somebody. And so when you're pressing up against it, there are people who are going to say, like, no, like, it works here, here, and here. I don't know why you would change it on the if come that something else might be better. And that's really problematic because a lot of times organizations that are most in need for change are at the top of their game. Like things are going really, really well. And that's really, it's a tough time. People are like, no, 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 we're going to stay the course. But you can't stay on top. If you stay with the status quo, you're going to have to continue to evolve. Within Ford, and I was with Ford for 27 years, I saw lots of evolutions. I mean, I had 7 different CEOs during that time, and we saw some really tough times. I mean, particularly like the global financial crisis of 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. And Ford likes to say we're always at our best when our back is against the wall. And that is true. Like, I think that we have a really strong rally cry. But my job was to try to prevent us from ever getting our back against the wall, was trying to prevent that from happening, to say, hey, I can't predict the future, but if you pay attention to this, that, and the other thing, there are some strong signals that change lies ahead. And we should think through what the consequences of those are.
What's some advice you could give to our audience, which is electric utilities? So a little bit different. Like they care about serving the customer, they care about having a good reputation with the customer, but the customer is for the most part not leaving. They have monopoly powers, and they get that protection and have for a century. But they are in the midst of kind of societal change as opposed to like product change and customer change. So I'm curious if there are any examples or pieces of advice that you would give to them in thinking about adaptation. Like where do you start? How should they be thinking? And how do you open your mind to these new opportunities if even you acknowledge that you're maybe more closed off and inclined to cling to that status quo, as a lot of us are, who like being safe and we like stability. We don't like shaking the tree too much.
I love this question, and I'm going to be limited in my answer because if you want the real answer,
don't give it all away.
You're going to have to come see the presentation.
Yeah.
But this societal change is the hardest, right? Societal change, whether we want it or not, is almost without any individual, certainly any industry's control. And so it's, moving at its own path. And so let's talk about electric. And I'm just going to draw on my experience inside the auto industry. So the adoption of electric vehicles, could be a corollary to like what consumer attitudes are about sustainability and how it applies to power sources. And we're lucky because Bill Ford, who is the executive chair of Ford Motor Company, and also the great-grandson of Henry Ford, says he has 2 great passions in life. One has been automobiles, and the other's been in the environment. And he spent his 40-plus year career trying to reconcile the 2. And so I think as a company, we really pushed for those things. And so 20 years ago, when we were introducing the hybrid, 25 years ago, when we were introducing hybrid, there's no math. Like when you try to make the math work, it doesn't. You make a very difficult business case, so you have to go on something other than that. And so we had this notion about it had to be good for people, good for planet, good for the product. And so we started looking into the hybrid vehicle. But now we are like 2025, and let's talk about where EVs are right now. We did a lot of research around the world. We went to 15 different countries when I was still at Ford. And one of the things I found so fascinating is that like adults, tell us at a degree of 80% that they are changing their daily activities to fight climate change. You go, wow, if 80% of us are really working at this problem, we should have it licked, right? But of course we don't, because when you dig a little deeper, you find that the majority of those people that said they're actively changing say that the changes they'll make, they'll only do so if the inconvenience is little to non-existent. So they don't want to be inconvenienced. They want to modify and they want to do their part, but they're not ready to make trade-offs. So if you're a car company, that meant we had to find a way to give them both mileage and muscle. And we did that, I think, really successfully with things like our all-electric utility vehicle, which we badged under the Mustang nameplate. So Mustang's known for performance and handling and speed and all those other things. And so by putting our first all-electric utility vehicle under it, we were trying to really show people that, hey, this is a vehicle that handle. You know, you can get everything you want without any sort of trade-offs. And that worked really well for us. And so not long after that, we took our like cornerstone project, the F-150. It's like top selling vehicle for decades. And we turned it into an all electric. And sales went up really well, but they didn't sustain. We could not sustain them. So when I retired from Ford in 2022, the plan was that we would have 40% of our portfolio being all electric by the year 2030. And since then, we've had to really kind of pivot because the demand softened. I mean, those people that bought the vehicles would consider themselves early adopters for those types of vehicles. Um, and when you get into things this complex, these sort of things that touch all of society, it's a whole ecosystem. You know, you need infrastructure, you need urban planning, you need to figure out how to privatize the charging stations, those types of things. So the corollary for electric companies and other utilities and just all industries, they might go, oh, wait a minute, that means I have a little bit more time to go green. That means that consumers aren't ready. But I would say that's not the case because, again, our research shows something like 80% of people say that they have higher expectations of businesses and governments to lead the way. So if you are a utility, they are looking for you to take a stronger stance. Now, it's a paradox because people are saying, I don't want to pay for it. I'm not sure I want my bills to increase. I just want access to cleaner power. And so it's a daunting challenge.
And we will have answers to those challenges at DISTRIBUTECH and not in this interview because you need to come see Sheryl live in Dallas, March 25th. Sheryl Connelly, thanks so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in Dallas.
Oh, I can't wait either. Thank you so much, John.